Once upon a time, there lived a happy couple who lived in a beautiful city. Their names were Ije and Ekene, and for the first 2 years of their marriage, they lived happily alone in their beautiful home. Ije was a tech guru who worked remotely from home. Her husband Ekene owned several successful businesses in town. Despite his busy schedule, Ekene always made time for his wife. She was his happy place, and Ekene spared no opportunity to show it. They shared laughter, prayers, and even their dreams, and the only thing that was missing in their marriage was a child. Though the couple had agreed to wait and enjoy each other first, Mama Ekene had other plans. She was a traditional woman who could not understand why her daughter-in-law was still yet to have a child after 3 years of marriage. By the third year of her own marriage, Mama Ekene already had two children. She was of the opinion that a woman's duty in the marriage was to bear children and nurture them, whilst keeping her husband happy. Mama Ekene decided that it was high time that she got to the root of the matter. So, she packed up her bags and headed straight for the city. She arrived their home unannounced and walked into the house, dragging her big traveling bag as IJ rushed to give her a hug. Mama, you are welcome. We didn't know you were coming, she said to her mother-in-law, who rebuked her for insinuating that she had to take her permission before coming to visit her own son. How dare you? She said as she pushed IJ away from her, warning her to stay away from her. IJ remained respectful as she smiled and greeted her warmly. Welcome, Mama. You look strong. Let me get you something to eat, she said as she walked into the kitchen to prepare a meal for her. Mama did not respond. She walked into the living room, her eyes sweeping the entire place, which was spotless to the core. Then, her gaze landed on the dining table, which was now IJ's workstation. On it were two laptops, a phone and a tablet, as well as multiple wires and chargers, which were all plugged in their respective sockets. Mama Ikene could not hide her anger. So this is why this useless girl has refused to have a child for my son, she said as she angrily grabbed the appliances and walked straight to the bathroom, where she submerged them into the water. IJ returned to the living room minutes later to realize that her laptops and phones were nowhere to be found. She asked Mama, who ignored her completely as she went into a frenzy trying to find the gadgets. After a few minutes, IJ found her gadgets all submerged in water. Her rage was indescribable. She stood in the bathroom frozen, her mouth parted in disbelief as her eyes stared at the floating remains of her hard-earned work. Her MacBook, tablets and phones all submerged in the soapy water. IJ rushed out to the living room as she began to scream, Mama, what have you done? She asked angrily as Mama stood confidently in the living room, her hands folded as she began to speak. Maybe now your womb will finally open for you to give my son children. You think children come through laptops and phones? She asked IJ, who could feel her blood boiling. For all these years, IJ had been nothing but respectful and kind to Mama. She endured her snide comments and the endless insults, believing that Mama would one day warm up to her and love her like a daughter. But standing there, with her gadgets all floating in the bathtub, IJ finally saw the truth. Mama hated her with a passion, and from that moment, something in IJ changed. She wiped her tears, took a deep breath and composed herself. Thank you, Mama, she said with a chilling calmness. You've shown me exactly who you are, she said to Mama, who she served her food as she walked away and locked herself up in her room. Hours later, Ekene returned from his office to meet his mother in his home. She had finished eating her meal and was lounging in the living room, cutting her nails, when Ekene walked in, shocked to meet his mother in their home. Oh, mother, you are here. Hope you are fine, he asked her as she began to tell him what a useless woman he married for a wife. Instead of giving us grandchildren, she's spending time behind her laptop, she said as she rolled her eyes and informed Ekene that she was not leaving this house until his wife is confirmed pregnant. Let me see how she will not get pregnant under my watch, she said to Ekene, who warned her respectfully to keep away from his wife. When we are ready to have children, we will, Mama, he said to his mother, who accused him of being bewitched. That your witch of a wife believes she has succeeded, right? She asked her son Ekene, who she informed that in the next 3 months, if his wife fails to fall pregnant, she will get another woman for him who will bear him children before he grows old. Ekene could no longer endure his mother's rant. He urged her to go get some rest as he proceeded to the bedroom where his wife sat on the bed wiping down her gadgets. She looked extremely sad, and Ekene had never seen his wife in such a mood before. He asked what had happened, but his wife informed him that she mistakenly poured some water on them. The gadgets were now dead, and Ekene could not stand seeing his wife this sad. He promised to replace the gadgets, and his wife IJ looked up and thanked him for his kindness. IJ could not tell her husband what had really happened. She could not risk her husband sending his mother away because of her. The next morning, IJ woke up to prepare breakfast for her husband, where she met his mother already setting the dining table with the food that she had prepared. She stood there furious as her mother-in-law gave her a wicked smile and asked if IJ in her wildest dreams could ever make a food as delicious as hers. IJ stared angrily at the food. She had endured enough of her mother-in-law's insults and wickedness and had to do something about it. She stood there as her mother-in-law went to inform her son that his food was ready. IJ quickly rushed to the kitchen to grab a handful of salt. She poured it into the food and snuck back into the kitchen, waiting for the drama to unfold. A few minutes later, her husband arrived at the dining table with his mother, who stood next to him, happy as she urged him to sit. Ekene was so shocked to see that his mother prepared breakfast. He dug in happily and spat the food out as quickly as he put it into his mouth. Mama looked so confused. She grabbed the spoon and took a bite, nearly spitting it out on the table. "Ha! Jesu! Who added salt to this food?" she asked as IJ walked out of the kitchen with some food in her hands. "Thank goodness that I prepared backup," she said as she served her husband his food in front of his mother, feigning innocence and shock at how his mother's food became salty. "You little witch," his mother said angrily as she accused IJ of sabotaging the meal. IJ stood there frozen as she put up the act of her life. Tears poured down her face as she tried to convince her husband that she was innocent. She knew how her husband Ekene hated to see her cry, so she switched the narrative and accused Mama of sabotaging her own food so as to create enmity between her husband and herself. Ekene, knowing what his mother was capable of, believed his wife and gently pulled her into his arms and wiped her tears. "Mama, please," he said angrily, turning to his mother. "Stop this madness. Why would you accuse IJ of something like this?" Mama Ekene opened her mouth in complete shock, unable to believe what was happening. "You're believing her over me?" she asked her son Ekene, who nodded and began to speak. "Yes, Mama, I believe her, because ever since you arrived, there's been nothing but tension. You've insulted her, humiliated her, and yet, all IJ has done was respect you." IJ sniffed and looked up at him with her soft watery eyes. "I've tried, Ekene. I've truly tried. I've never wanted to come between you and your mother, but she doesn't want peace." "Exactly," Mama snapped, "because you bewitched my son. You've turned him into a houseboy who can't even see the truth for himself," she said as Ekene snapped at her angrily. "Mama, stop it. This is my house. My wife is not your punching bag. If you cannot respect her, then you will have to leave my house." Mama could not believe her eyes. She had really underestimated IJ and didn't see it coming. IJ, on the other hand, became more calculating and smart. She remained sweet and composed in front of her husband, but with Mama, her vengeance was silent and deliberate. IJ did everything possible to make her mother-in-law look crazy. One morning, she went to the market to buy Mama's favorite wrapper, the exact wrapper that Mama had currently in her box. IJ returned home and began to tear the wrapper with his scissors. Mama, on seeing this, froze in shock. "Is that my wrapper?" she yelled out angrily as she stomped towards IJ and gave her a very hot slap. IJ staggered backwards from the force of the slap, her hand flying to her cheek. She dropped the scissors immediately and let out a dramatic gasp. The sound of the slap echoed through the house like a thunderclap. Just as Ekene stepped into the living room, his eyes widened in horror as he rushed forward. "What's going on here?" IJ burst into tears instantly, her shoulders trembling as she watched her husband approach. "She slapped me!" she cried out, pointing at Mama, who stood there angry and unapologetic, as she accused IJ of destroying her favorite wrapper. "But Mama, this wrapper is not yours," she said to Mama, who insisted that she was a blatant liar. "This wife of yours took my wrapper from my box and tore it before my eyes. she said to Ekene, who insisted on confirming if truly the wrapper was hers. He walked down to her room and ransacked her box, where her own wrapper lay untouched. Ekene picked up the wrapper from Mama's box, neatly folded, untouched and exactly where it had always been. He stood there frozen for a moment, before turning and walking back to the living room with the wrapper. Mama, he said, his voice cold and disappointed. Is this not the wrapper you just accused IJ of destroying? Mama's eyes widened. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. You said she took your wrapper and tore it, but your own is still in your box exactly how you left it. Maybe I made a mistake, Mama stammered, her confidence shrinking as she began to make excuses. It looked exactly like mine. Why would she be ripping apart an identical wrapper if she didn't mean to make me react? She said to her son Ekene, who asked his wife why she was cutting up the wrapper in the first place. IJ, in tears, narrated how her late mother had the exact same wrapper, which she cut up into smaller pieces to place in her journal, her prayer book and even her laptop bag, just to feel closer to her mother again. Why would I buy a wrapper just to trick your mother? What will I gain from that? I've only ever wanted peace, IJ said as she broke down in tears. I will never touch Mama's things without her permission. I've tried, Ekene. I've tried to be a daughter to Mama, but she hates me and I don't know why. Ekene pleaded on his mother's behalf as he helped his wife up to her feet. His mother tried to convince him that his wife was lying, but Ekene flared up in anger and told her to stop. Stop, Mama. Please just stop. My wife has been nothing but good to you since you arrived, but all you do is hit her and call her names, all because you blame her for her inability to have a child. Mama, I love you so much, but if staying here means turning my home into a war zone, then I have to protect my wife. This will be the last time that I'll tolerate this nonsense. The next time, you'll be on your way back to the village, he said to his mother, who stood there shocked to see her son so angry at her. Mama Ekene knew what IJ was doing. She knew deep down that IJ wanted to destroy her reputation slowly from within, without lifting a finger, without raising her voice, without ever being caught. And worst of all, it was working. Mama Ekene stood there trembling. Her son, the same boy she raised with her own hands, now stood in front of her, protective of his woman, and threatening to send her away. But what could she say? She had no proof. All she had was her word, and IJ's tears had buried it 6 feet beneath the ground. Mama stood there, determined to expose IJ for who she truly was. The next morning, while IJ was working on her laptop on the dining table, Mama confronted her saying, I see you, IJ, Mama said through gritted teeth as she walked slowly towards the dining table where IJ sat as she typed into her new laptop that her husband had got for her. You think I don't know what you're doing? She said angrily, glancing at the hallway to be sure that her son Ekene was not around. You're playing with fire, you useless girl. My son will see through these shenanigans and I'll make sure of it, she said as IJ looked up at her with a wicked smile on her face. Mama, I don't know what you're talking about, she said as she continued to walk. Drop the act, Mama backed, slamming her hand on the table. You've poisoned my son's mind, turned him against me in this very house that I helped him to build. You're winning now, but mark my words, I will expose you. I will show him who you truly are. IJ shut her laptop gently as she stood up slowly and leaned close until her lips were inches away from Mama's ear. Then, you'd better hurry, she whispered, her voice sweet like honey but laced with quiet venom. Because the more you fight me, the more innocent I look. And the more innocent I look, the faster you lose your son. Mama blinked, stunned at the sudden switch. Before she could respond, IJ raised her voice loud enough for her husband to hear. Mama, please stop shouting at me, she cried, backing away as fake tears welled up in her eyes instantly. What have I done to you, Mama, to deserve this level of hatred? All I want to be is a daughter to you, but your hatred for me has made it hard for you to accept me, she cried out as her husband Ekene rushed out in panic. Mama, what is it again? He asked his mother, who told him to ask his useless wife. Ask her, Mama shouted. Ask your wife what she just said to me. IJ fell to her knees in that moment as she continued to cry. I was just walking, Ekene. She came and said I've ruined your life. I didn't say anything. I promise. All I did was sit here and wish that she loved me as a daughter. Ekene held her and stared at his mother in anger. Mama, this is enough. You have to leave this house tomorrow morning. I've had it. I can't keep watching you torment my wife. I'm your son, yes, but I'm also a husband. No, Ekene, you're not doing this, Mama cried out as she trembled with rage. You came here with bad intentions, and you've done nothing but tear my home apart. I love you, Mama, but if you can't live in peace with my wife, then you have no business being here. Mama stood there frozen, her mouth open, but no words came out. Her own son, Haikene, had chosen another woman over her, and worse, a woman she knew was lying. But Mama wasn't one to back down so easily. That night, she stayed up in bed, scheming, strategizing on how she would expose IJ. If Ekene wanted proof, then proof he would get, she said as she lay in bed, waiting patiently for the break of dawn. The next morning, Mama Ekene walked into the living room and met IJ, who was sipping a glass of juice and working on her laptop. She ignored her completely as IJ greeted her and asked what she wanted for breakfast. Mama smiled back at her and requested for some plantains and eggs. IJ quickly rushed to the kitchen to prepare the food. As soon as IJ disappeared into the kitchen, Mama Ekene struck. She walked towards the hallway. Carefully, she poured a small bucket of water across the polished tiles, spreading it in a part between the kitchen entrance and the dining area, right where IJ would walk when she came out of the kitchen. Then Mama sat in the living room and waited. This was the moment of truth. Mama did not need to say anything. All she had to do was make IJ fall and hope that she would finally explode, maybe curse or even strike her. And then Ekene would see the true color of the woman that he married. Soon, IJ walked out of the kitchen with the food in a tray. She smiled as she walked towards the dining, not knowing the danger that lay ahead of her. IJ slipped on the wet tiles. The tray flew from her hands and the plates shattered against the wall. She hit the ground with a force that left her unconscious for a few minutes. Ekene, on hearing the commotion, ran to check what had happened when he met his wife unconscious on the floor. Mama, what have you done? He asked his mother, who stood there as she watched him rush her to the hospital. Mama Ekene, in that moment, packed up her bags to leave for the village. She could not stand her son's rage and decided to leave before her son gets back. Her mission in their home caused more harm than good, forcing Mama Ekene to accept defeat and leave. However, at the hospital, Ekene sat in silence as the doctor approached him to reveal that his wife was pregnant. Ekene's eyes widened in disbelief. Pregnant? He asked, as the doctor smiled gently and nodded. Yes, just a few weeks. She and the baby will be fine, he said, revealing that all IJ needed was rest. Ekene stood there stunned, his heart filled with joy at the thought of finally having a child. A child was on the way, the very thing Mama Ekene had tormented his wife about for years. He walked into the room and sat beside his wife as he gently held her hand. IJ, he whispered, you're carrying our child, he said to IJ, who could not believe her ears. A tear rolled down her cheek as she told Ekene to call his mother to inform her of the good news. Mama Ekene was already at the car park when the call came through. Mama, IJ is 6 weeks pregnant, he said on the other end of the phone as Mama broke down in tears and asked if she was truly pregnant. Yes, Mama, she is. You tried to destroy the one person who carried your grandchild all along. You nearly pushed her to her death, and I cannot fathom what level of wickedness that you hold in your heart for my wife. Mama, we need time away from you. Please pack your things and leave the house before we return. I cannot trust you around my wife at this delicate time, he said as he hung up the call, leaving his mother in regrets. Mama Ekene sat there broken, unable to speak or move. She had lost. She had tried everything to make IJ look bad, to make her leave, to destroy her spirit, to turn her son against her. But in the end, the very thing she claimed IJ could not do, IJ had already done. She was pregnant, and worse, she had won without lifting a finger, without shouting, without ever being caught. Mama sat there defeated, but this time, all she could see was her reflection, an old bitter woman who had fought the wrong battle and lost everything. She had thrown away a chance to be a part of something beautiful, something that she had prayed for years. And now, the very woman she called barren was carrying the grandchild she had so desperately wanted. Mama, in that moment, regretted all she did and wished that she treated IJ with love and understanding. She had now ruined her relationship with her son. who did not trust her around his pregnant wife after what she did. That was how Mama Ekene returned to the village in regret, missing the chance to be a part of her grandchild's journey from the very beginning. She learned the hard way that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. The lesson to be learned from this story is that impatience, pride, and unnecessary interference can ruin beautiful relationships. Mama Ekene allowed her desperation for a grandchild and her outdated beliefs to cloud her judgment, turning her into an enemy within her own son's home. Instead of showing love and support, she brought division and pain. But in the end, all her efforts to destroy IJ only exposed her own bitterness. True strength lies in patience, love, and trust, because what is meant to be will happen in its time. Don't let your own hands destroy the very blessing you've been praying for. I hope you enjoyed the story.